I've got to. I guess I have to stand here for the microphone then. It's a sad story we're going to start with today. We went. I'll bring up my. I guess we can have the Access database open while we tell the story because it is about our Access database, about the veterinarian, and if we look at our patients, we have all these 3 little patients: the little cat Paws, the dog Ranger, and the feline Fluffy. And one day, someone was editing the patient table and accidentally confused a capital O with a 0. And they entered the information about Tabby, or the feline named Fluffy, the Tabby cat. And time went on, and there was a disease outbreak at the kennel next door, and they needed to evacuate. They needed to evacuate the veterinary clinic because of the disease that was spreading from the kennel next door. It was a poorly managed veterinarian right next door. They shouldn't have been allowed to be open. And in order to evacuate, they needed to notify all the owners of the pets that they needed to come pick up their pet. Well, they had a list, and when the owner, who is O1, let's see, who is O-1? When the owner, Stephen, came to pick up the pets, he was just given a letter that you must pick up your pet, and who is the owner, or what patients are owned by it's Ted, Ted is O-1. And the cat, O-1 is the owner. So Ted came to pick up based on the notice he got. Now, what notice did he get? He only got the notice about Ranger, the canine, because the owner, O-1, is who Ted is. O-1, not 0-1. So Ted went home with his pet, Ranger, and Fluffy was left behind because Fluffy was connected to 0-1. And is there an owner 0-1? No, there is no owner 0-1. Fluffy got left behind and died of the disease that came from the veterinarian next door. And the veterinarian got sued for Fluffy dying, and they went out of business, got sued, and the veterinarians were sued and thrown in jail. All because someone in the patient's table accidentally typed a 0 instead of a O, which was the proper owner. This is a concept known as referential integrity. When we refer to the owner, it must be an owner that exists in the owner's table. If not, that data will not allow to be entered into the patient's table. So let's go and correct the patient's table manually and save Fluffy's life by now owner O-1, old Ted, will now pick up both of his pets instead of leaving one of his pets behind. Now, we don't want this to ever happen again. So we need to specify in our Access database that you can never refer to an owner that does not exist when you're referring to the owner from the patient's table. We do not want Access to ever let us to refer to a non-existent owner. So in order to do that, I need to close both tables, and I need to go to a special place called Database Tools, Relationships. Very important topic here at Emmaus, especially in the spring. We need to show in the Relationships table the owner's table and the patient's table, and to specify that when I'm referring to an owner, it refers to an owner in the owner's table. Just like when we build queries, we click and drag one direction or another. I click and drag owner ID to the owner ID in the owner's table. Once I hover over it, I can let go. And an edit relationships box will pop up. And guess what I want to check? We want to check enforce referential integrity. So therefore, let's just see what happens now. We will enforce referential integrity, creating that relationship. And now I can close my relationships table and saving my changes. Now let's try to assign an incorrect owner to a patient. I come to patients, and let's try that same error again. Let's accidentally type a number 0 instead of owner 0. Doesn't complain yet, but watch what happens if I leave that line. Uh-oh. A related record is required in the table owner. It is a somewhat intimidating error message, but is keeping poor Fluffy from being an orphan. I can Control Z and undo my bad change. Question, Diana?
I didn't catch everything you said for understations. I didn't know if you closed that a bit too quickly.
Okay, so go ahead and close the relationship. Now drag owner ID from patients to the owner ID and the owners table. Now you're going to need to stretch out the owners table so you can see all the entries. Now in your case, you didn't rename the ID to owner ID, but that's not a problem. Just drag owner ID from the patients table and drag it on top of ID in the owners table. And there's a relationship. They don't have to have the same name. And there's where you want to click the check mark or the click box against enforced referential integrity. See that? Click that. And then click create. Now grab the patient's table and drag it away a little bit. You can just put it right on top of the word patients and it'll drag it over. So see how you have the connection now between the two tables. Now go ahead and close and save your relationships. Yeah. Ooh, damn, this computer has the disease now. It's not doing the taskbar like yours is. Let's see if it'll let you log out. Do Control Alt Delete. Control Alt and then delete. That's back. And try do a sign out. See what you sign out. And just sign back in. And that may fix it. If not, then we'll do a restart. And if you're happy with that. Now see, now just sign back in and see if it works now for you. The word student. I think that's who you were. No gaps. Just student. Just student. Now is that too? That's a little bit complicated. The whole referential integrity, but what that means again is something fairly simple. And when you refer to an owner, that owner must exist. So poor Floppy doesn't get assigned to an owner that does not exist. And this is something that we want to do between multiple tables. Is it working now? All right. I'll chalk that up to Windows 11. Okay, so the patient's table now will not let us refer to the wrong owner. Let's see what happens if I go to close the patient's table, yes. What if I want to change the ID of owner 1 or owner 2? Would that break the relationship if I made him owner -3? Now, the patient is still, I believe, still referring to owner -2. Let's see what happens if I try to change owner -3. Oh, it doesn't complain. Oh, finally, it says, wait a minute, we can't do that. So if you leave the line, then it checks the relationships. That can be confusing because it doesn't complain until I click off the line, and then it's like, uh-oh. It doesn't say clearly, hey, what's the problem? It just says there's something that includes related records. So this is where Access kind of falls down and not being so helpful. The best thing to do if you see this kind of message is, okay, let's Control Z. What change did I just make? Then it'll change it back to the broken owner. There I now see that it's happy with that. Let's go look at our relationships again before we play with some more. Let's go to Database Tools, Relationships. I can always bring this back up, And I can click on that line and double click and edit my relationship. Let's try cascade update related fields and see what happens now. Let's click on cascade update. I'll click OK. Close and save my relationships. Now let's go to the owners and let's see if I change owner 1. Let's change him to owner 11 just for fun. Let's see if it accepts that. I click on a different line. Ooh, it doesn't complain this time. Let's see what has happened to the patients table. Look at that. The reference to owner 11 got changed. So the cascade update is a helpful way of, if I ever decide I want to change the ID of the owner, let's see if it'll let it do it here. Can I change it here back to 01, or it's going to say, wait a minute, that doesn't exist. Let's see what happens. Oh, it doesn't let me change it here because it's referenced in the owners table. So let's Control Z, that change, close that, and let's go back to the owners and give him back to O-1. So I can only change it when he is the key in this table. I can't change O1 to O11 in the other table. But the cascade update works. See how this O-1 got updated because of the cascade update. So back to database tools, relationships, double click on any connection, and these are the 2 checkboxes that help to make sure that I don't accidentally refer to the wrong owner. This says if I ever change the ID of that owner, anyone referring to him will get update to their related field. So I click OK, and now I'm going to check the book to see what other relationships, because do you know what other, can you see what other relationships are there that are important? Let's see here. Let's look at our appointments table. That's the one that tells us the most. Let's look at our appointments table. Oh, I don't want to open. I want to add that to my relationships. Double click here. Let's see here. What is appointments referring to? Well, let's see here. If I expand my appointments table, I am referring to a patient ID. So let's establish that relationship. I click and drag patient ID from there to that patient ID. And let's enforce referential integrity, cascade update, and create that relationship. Oh, and now let's rearrange things so I don't have crossing lines, or it's kind of annoying. And I can rearrange things, and then the lines will follow. Yes?
So mine's saying no, you didn't get index found for the reference field of the primary table. Which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, access messages are often not very helpful. So which one are you trying to connect?
The patient ID with the patient ID there.
Well, so patient's ID, well, you have a primary key in patients, and you have a patient ID field that were supposed to be one field. So go ahead and close that, and let's fix our patients table.
Just close this.
Close the relationships and save changes. And let's right-click design on the patients table. Just click the triangle. Now you see you have patient ID and ID. We want to turn the ID, click the primary key and turn that off. Turn off the primary key by just clicking on the primary key in the upper left. Upper left gray box, left, left. Upper left corner. You see the little key there in the upper left corner? Keep going upper left. Keep going to the left, to the left, to the left. Now, see that key? No, over there. Right there. See the gray box? You're almost there. That's it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Okay. Now click patient ID and click the key now. And now click the key. Now he's the primary key. And now click on ID. You want to get rid of him. Just click on that row.
Just ID.
Click on the gray and delete that. Click on the gray on the left side. Right next to the ID, the little gray box is right. Click on that one. You're on the line. Go down. No.
Delete.
You don't only want to delete that one.
Backspace.
We have everything selected right now. We want to only select the ID box. Maybe click off of that. Click on ID, the word ID for a second. There. Now go back to the left and click on that. Now right-click delete, or hit the delete key. That's a backspace.
Control Z.
That's not the delete key. Find the delete key. It's a very important key to know.
Okay.
There, that's backspace. Does that say delete? It says backspace. Do you see one nearby that says delete?
Oh.
Very important.
Ah.
That's a very important key to know, and lots of computer thingies. All right, delete that one. All right, now we can say close the patient's table. Save changes. Go to your database tools, relationships, and now drag patient ID to patient ID, and establish referential integrity and cascade update, and create, and it should be all happy.
Okay.
There we go. So there was a little structure problem, but once we fix the structure, it's ready to establish the relationship. Now, can you see any other relationship that's important here? We have patient ID, appointment ID, patient ID, veterinarian. Let's see, how is veterinarian related? Is that related to another table? Well, let's take a look at the veterinarians table. And we have a veterinarian ID. Well, I believe this is the same as a veterinarian ID. So let's drag veterinarian to veterinarian ID. Enforcing referential integrity, cascade update, and create. Now you're becoming real relational database experts, and I believe this is, let's see, treatment number. Is that a primary key in the treatments table? Let's take a look at treatment costs. The treatment costs, the treatment number, is it a primary key is the important thing. Yes, treatment number is a primary key. So I believe let's add treatment cost to our relationships. And let's connect treatment number to treatment number there. Treatment number, treatment number. Enforce referential integrity and cascade update. And create. Uh-oh. That one has a problem because it's that complicated field, and apparently we're referring to a non-existent treatment. That's what it feels like. So let's turn off cascade update delete, and let's just create the relationship without the referential integrity. It will create the relationship, but it won't put the referential integrity in there. But it'll give us a chance to know that they're supposed to be related. So we have just discovered there's a problem apparently in our appointments table referring to a treatment that doesn't exist. Let's see if we can find that. So let's close this, relationships, and let's see if we can discover the problem. So treatment and appointments, we're referring to these various treatments. I'm wondering if it is because no, there's our treatment cost. Oh, there we go. There is no treatment 44. Remember how I accidentally typed an invalid treatment and I said we're going to find out what problem here? We just have discovered it. I referred to a non-existent treatment here. Let's fix that. Now, it may have worked for you if you had not made that erroneous change to treatment numbers and appointments. Now I can close appointments, go back to my relationships, and double-click on the relationship I started, and enforce referential integrity. Let's see if it's happy now. Look at that. It's happy now. Now that I have that structure and these rules established, now people can't accidentally refer to a non-existent patient, a non-existent owner, a non-existent veterinarian with the bad finger on a keyboard. Is there any other relationship we might be missing? Let's see. Veterinarians are there. Veterinary vendors. Oh, do they have relationship to any other table? Let's see. In veterinary vendors, I'm referring to an ID, a state, city. It looks like that is independent of any reference in our other tables, unless, is it in the appointment? We have a treatment number. Oh, there is the treatment. No, that's the treatment. Let's look at our treatment costs. Treatment, yeah, it has a particular name. So I guess the veterinary vendors table is independent of the others. There's not a specific reference to a patient or a treatment cost. It just has what they offer, product type, and an ID for the vendor. So we can tell that based on that, there's probably some missing information, because you'd think the vendors might be related to a treatment, but that might be for someone else to figure out. Let's see, appointments, we have that. Owners, we have that relationship. Patients, we have that relationship. And treatment costs, we have that. So now we have established the relationships between all our tables and the other tables, giving us a little more experience with what the database people have to deal with when they're storing information on the websites on the internet. Let's see if that is all that we need to do for this particular assignment. So take a look at this. We can always rearrange these just to make them nice and readable. This is probably the most complex part of databases, just giving you a taste of how they have to be constructed and related one table to another. Why do they do this? Well, I don't want to keep renaming my veterinarian when I'm referring to the veterinarian's appointment that he has. I just want to refer to them by what their ID is. And that's the only thing we store in the appointments table. If I ever want to know his name, or her name, or the address or phone, I go to that table for that information. In databases, we only want to store things in one place at a time. We don't want to have this veterinary's name stored in multiple places. If they ever change their name or their address or their phone number, we only want to change it in one place. Redundancy is bad in databases, having stored same information in multiple places. It makes changing things horrible. So I can adjust these all I want just to make it nice and readable and pretty. And when I save my relationship diagram, it remembers my arrangement. Now let's check the textbook to see if we have everything needed to be done in Access Project 3. I got to refresh my bookshelf here. I can always come back to Database Tools, view my relationships, double click on any connection I have to see whether the relationship referential integrity is set. I can always go back, view the relationships again under Database Tools. Alright, so we've covered that last section. Let's make sure we do everything they ask us to. They had us, I think we've done more than they do in the book. They had us show the referential integrity between the owners and the patients, and I don't know if they had us do the other ones. But they explain referential integrity in the book. They don't tell you the sad story, though. I think knowing the sad story, you'll remember it a little better. Now they show you, let's go ahead and show the consequences of this relationship. If I ever go to the appointments table and see what's in there, I guess I don't see the related appointments. Let's look at the patients table. Notice, because we have the connection, if I ever click the plus on a patient, I will see the related records in that related table by clicking on the little plus next to that patient. So this is showing that this patient is referenced by this other table. And I can do the same thing. Let's look at the treatment cost. I click on that and I can see what appointments have that treatment related. So once I establish the connections, the database gets a little more informative as I browse the tables. So knowing the connections helps me navigate more intelligently through my data in my tables. Those are called sub-data sheets. You see the plus there? It's all because that relationship was established. So this one shows us that T10 is not in any appointments scheduled. T14, no appointment scheduled for that. Just by that connection being established. And let's see, duplicates, ordering. That, I think, that is it for AC Project 3. You have now been through the sophisticated capabilities of databases. But we're not going to be done completely, because now we're going to work on a database even more important than all the rest. I will stop this recording here just because this is the end of AC3, and then I'll start a new one on a super duper important database. So down comes the recording.